now, to all our listeners, wherever you may be, our sponsors, the makers of Lux Flakes and Lux Toilet Soap, join me in wishing you a happy summer. And until September 9th, this is Cecil B. DeMille saying good night and goodbye to you from Hollywood.
If I had learned anything about programming and personalities on the air by the 1930s, I think it was that you had to pull things in out of the blue sky. In other words, to hope and expect to find something somewhere without having it introduced to you formally.
In the hour just ahead, the Columbia Broadcasting System will present from New York and from Hollywood the first and second in a series of 14 new programs entitled Forecast. Forecast, an adventure in radio futures, bringing you 14 first-night performances, 7 from New York, 7 from Hollywood. Each performance the first of a projected series.
Forecast, an adventure in novelty, offering Columbia's answer to the ever-present American demand for something new in radio.
Forecast, an adventure for listeners, presenting a star-spangled summer full of entertainment, each broadcast marked for future reference.
The Lux Radio Theatre was an hour-long production which ran Monday evenings from 9 to 10 p.m. When Forecast premiered in its time slot on July 15, 1940, it did so with 2 half-hour productions, the first from New York and the second from Hollywood. The idea was simple: 14 audition programs over the course of 8 weeks. 2 weeks would feature a single hour-long production, one from each coast, and CBS announcers invited listeners to write to CBS to let them know how they felt about each program. The most popular shows would be earmarked for future production. Forecast number 1 was called The Battle of Music. The show pitted a swing band against a classical orchestra in a battle of the musicians.
It's absurd, but there it is. Some of you like the music of the immortal composers, Beethoven, Bach, Brahms, Mozart, and all their golden company. Some of you like swing or jazz or whatever name you care to give it. Well, who's right? Swing or symphony, classics or jazz? We don't know, but we're going to have considerable fun trying to find out here tonight. You see, we're uniquely equipped for research along those lines, thanks to the versatility of Raymond Page, whose successes range from the Hollywood Hotel to the Hollywood Bowl. Mr. Page has 2 complete orchestras assembled on the stage. On my left, a swing band. On my right, a full symphony orchestra. When the 2 get together. Well, you can see that Raymond's ready for any emergency.
Now, band shows had been as old as radio programming itself, but a band competition show was a relatively new idea. So why would CBS champion such a pilot?
General Mills, makers of kicks, invite you to beat the band. If you can.
6 months earlier, NBC had premiered a band competition show of its own called Beat the Band. The show ran Sundays at 6:30 p.m., serving as a lead-in to the Jack Benny program, and was sponsored by Kick Cereal. It was hosted by comedian Gary Moore and featured Ted Weems' 14-piece orchestra, with vocals by Parker Gibbs, Marvel Maxwell, and the soon-to-be American sensation Perry Como. CBS was searching for its own alternative. They added comedic flavorings in the form of arguments between the MCs for the swing and classical bands and performed the show in front of a live audience.
Raymond, that was terrific. Doc, I think you're licked.
I'm not licked. The only one you've smeared is Beethoven, and he's great enough to stand it. Why, I leave it up to anyone here.
You're right, Mr. Spaulding. Absolutely, definitely correct. Swing is an abomination.
Well, that's a fine thing to say. Don't you give in, Mr. Hires. Now, don't you give
The bottom half of the hour from Hollywood featured a program called The American Theatre, starring husband and wife duo Frederick March and Florence Eldridge in The Gentleman from Indiana. March had once won an Academy Award as the star of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 1931. Florence Eldridge, who had grown up in Brooklyn, made her Broadway debut in 1918, and in the 1930s starred as Fantine in Les Miserables and Queen Elizabeth I in Mary of Scotland. The Gentleman from Indiana told a story from the life of American newspaperman turned Congressman John Harkless, and was adapted for radio by John Houseman, who recently wrapped up his radio partnership with Orson Welles on the Campbell Playhouse.
Ladies and gentlemen, the series of broadcasts of which tonight's program is intended as an example proposes to bring to the air the great novels, short stories, and plays of American life, the best work of the finest American writers who have taken America itself for their theme. In these doubt-ridden, feverish days, Americans are turning more and more, we believe, to an examination of their past, to find strength and courage for the future. And they are finding in that past new, rich sources of drama and romance. And so to the common men and women who built freedom here in this country, we who now must defend that freedom dedicate the American theater.
Although the program wasn't picked up, theater programs on radio using big stars were common. With Orson Welles' departure from the Campbell Playhouse to direct and star in Citizen Kane, CBS and Campbell's Soups were unsure if the program would continue. It did for one final season, returning Friday, November 29, 1940, with John Houseman remaining as producer. Major stage and film stars would appear in guest roles, including Humphrey Bogart, Jeanette MacDonald, and Frederick March.
I grew up in the tradition of Arthur Conan Doyle and H. Rider Haggard, if you will, and all of the romantic, how will it come out, can she get away by midnight people, rather than the clanking chains of the purely ghost story. Not that suspense doesn't sometimes have an element of horror, or that horror doesn't have an element of suspense, but I did not specialize in the clanking chains.
The following week, New York premiered a comedy musical called When You Were 21, starring a not much older Danny Kaye. Kaye had recently appeared on Broadway and was then the featured attraction at the New York nightclub La Martinique, located at 57 West 57th Street. It was, however, the show at the bottom half of the hour from Hollywood that later garnered the attention. At 9:30, director Alfred Hitchcock teamed up with star Herbert Marshall for an adaptation of the English novel The Lodger, about a Whitechapel London family that takes in a boarder soon suspected to be Jack the Ripper. They called this episode Suspense.
What are we going to do? Tell me that.
We'll get along, dear. Something will turn up.
Oh, we haven't had a lodger for months. Nobody even comes to look at the room anymore.
Yes, but things will work out a little
Oh,
bit.
they ain't never going to work out. Soon we won't even have a roof over our heads and... Oh, I'm sorry, Robbie. I didn't mean to take on so.
I know, dear, I know. It's all right.
Oh, I didn't think it. It's just that I've been so worried.
Well, don't you go worrying another second, old girl. Why, first thing you know, you won't be pretty anymore. You'll have your face all wrinkled
now,
and
see
now,
here,
come on, now, let's see a smile. Come on, just have one
Oh,
smile.
leave me
Just
alone.
one
I
smile
won't.
like you used to, eh? Who do you suppose that could be?
The late visitors are... Bunting, do you think it should be somebody looking for rooms?
Well, it might be. Want me to go to the door?
No, I'll go. Oh, you just stay here.
Yes, all right. Now, be sure you get a good look at the rooms before you let them in, dear.
Oh, I'm coming. Oh, I do hope it's... Yes, sir?
Is it not true that you let lodgings?
Yes, sir. Won't you come in, sir?
Thank you.
Could I take your cape, sir?
There's no need. No, I'm looking for a quiet room. It must be quiet.
Oh, we have that, sir. Above all, our house is quiet. Your bag, sir. May I take it?
No, I'll hold it.
Co-starring in this episode with Herbert Marshall were Edmund Gwynn, Noreen Gamble, Joseph Kearns, and Lorene Tuttle. The genius of the episode was that the play ended on the climax, not after, without ever revealing if the lodger was actually Jack the Ripper.
As that in the neighborhood had very increased,
With each moving footstep, the grip of terror grew tighter about her. She moved faster. If only she were in time. She was 2 streets away from the house. Then one. Then she saw Bunting. Sharply, like the thrust of a knife, she realized what this meant. Daisy was left alone with the lodger.
Bunting!
Helen, what is it?
Oh, Bunting, tell me, Bunting. Where's Daisy? Where is she? I say, where?
Why, home.
Oh, listen to me. Try to understand. Sleuth is the avenger.
What are you saying?
Oh, Lodger, he's the avenger, Bunting. Oh, but there's no time for that. Daisy's in danger. Hurry!
Yes. Daisy! Daisy!
Here we are, Bunting. Here we are.
Daisy!
Oh,
Daisy!
Daisy, where are you? I look in the kitchen, Bunting. You tried the sitting room. Daisy!
Daisy!
Where are you, Daisy?
Answer me, Daisy!
Oh.
By the bedroom.
She's not here. What about the dining room?
Look, she's not there. She's not downstairs.
Then there's just his room. Go on. Open the door.
Say, cut. What's the idea, Hitch? I have a few more lines to do.
As Mr. Marshall, the narrator, you have. Not as Mr. Sleuth, the lodger.
Hitch, you can't stop the play right here. It isn't fair, you know.
Why isn't it, Bob? What more is there to say?
But Mr. Hitchcock, won't people want to know what Bunting and me found in the room?
All right, Ellen. What precisely did you find?
Well, nothing, sir.
There. You see? Nothing. No Roger, no Bible. And that locked dresser drawer. What about that?
We unlocked it, sir.
And what was in it?
Nothing, sir.
You are certain, Mrs. Bunting?
Oh, you gave me quite a turn, Mr. Marshall. Yes, sir, I'm sure, sir. There was nothing.
Oh, begging your pardon, Mr. Hitchcock, but don't you think we'd better just mention about Daisy?
I don't know, Bunting. What do you think we ought to say?
The series' original intention was to give Alfred Hitchcock a vehicle to present mystery anthology. Hitchcock had directed a silent film of the same name called The Lodger back in 1926, and he had only arrived in America the previous year. There is even some mystery as to whether that is Hitchcock's voice on this program, or if it is Joseph Kearns doing an impression of Hitchcock. Either way, the episode was a success. While Orson Welles had scared the country with his adaptation of Dracula and the War of the Worlds, a high-budget suspense show had yet to premiere. Less than 2 years later, on Wednesday, June 17, 1942 at 9:30 p.m., Suspense premiered with a famous mystery by John Dixon Carr called The Burning Court.
The Columbia Network takes pleasure in bringing you Suspense. Suspense. Stories from the world's great literature of pure excitement. A new series frankly dedicated to your horrification and entertainment. Week by week, from the pick of new material, from the pages of best-selling novels, from the theater of Broadway and London, and the sound stages of Hollywood, will parade the most remarkable figures ever known. CBS gives you Suspense.
The first 6 productions were under the supervision of Charles Vanda, who was the executive producer on Forecast. By late July, the series was turned over to William Spear.
Well, Bill, when did Suspense go on the air, and were you involved with it from the very first?
I was not involved from the very first. The show was conceived by Charles Vanda, V-A-N-D-A, a very wonderful producer and great old friend, in California. And it came about in 1940 as part of a series called Forecast, which CBS put on in the summer as a replacement for the Lux Radio Theatre, which used to play 46 weeks a year, but took an 8-week hiatus. And up until then, they had just filled the show with anything that the network could find, but we came up with the idea of using that 8 weeks as a testing ground, a pilot it would be called today, ground for new shows, one of which was Suspense, another was Duffy's Tavern, and several shows were sold and went on into getting well known in radio. Some others fell by the wayside.
Suspense is produced and directed by William Spear. John Dees,
and there again, the one and only Lud Gluskin, who conducted, and his wonderful composers, Lucien Moraweck and Bernard Herrmann and others, were greatly responsible for the impact of those shows, creating of a spell of loneliness or of awe or of majesty or of what, because the narrative principle was so much in use in a show like Suspense. The theme was written by Bernard Herrmann, who was a wonderful composer and a great, great guy, and the husband, at the time anyway, of Lucille Fletcher, who wrote Sorry, Wrong Number and many of the shows that we did that were superior things. No, that was part of Charlie Vander's original show, too. I invented the phrase, tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
Suspense would go on to have a 20-year run as radio's outstanding theater of thrills. It catapulted William Spear to radio fame.